We were talking about if dating is easier or harder as a successful woman.
As a successful woman, uh, I feel like I'm not I'm successful in my own way, but like I'm not as successful as some. I would say for a successful woman though, just trying to speak on their behalf, um, it could be a little harder because depending on what type of woman that you are, like you either want to meet somebody and have the expectation that they're successful too, which is sometimes hard to come by, or you settle with someone that isn't as successful and is still trying to climb the ladder to be successful and deal with the ins and outs of that. So I would say it's a little complicated, just depending on what your standards are. And just if you're
That's a
straight, sometimes men can be. I'm not straight, but just speaking, just having straight friends. But yeah,
and
it's
so
hard.
if you're successful, do you think as a woman you might have to if you're a successful straight woman, do you have to settle a little bit?
It really just depends. And if you don't settle, you really just have to sit with yourself, which is not, to me, that's not a bad thing. I'm single right now. I think it's a good thing to sit with yourself and to treat yourself until you get what your standard is. But in a way, like some people will settle because like it's like, oh, you don't need to be as successful as me, but just meeting someone with a genuine heart or just like liking someone's personality and just persona in general, you could settle. Like in a lot of ways, you could settle for good people because not everybody that's just as successful as you are good people either. But
That's an interesting point too, yeah.
uh huh,
'Cause it might be harder for you to find
yeah,
someone who's as successful or more successful than you just because of how few people there are that do that well.
yeah,
It, but if some of them aren't super good natured anyway,
yeah. So you could really settle both ways. You could settle with somebody who is successful, who's not gonna give you all of the things that you want, like in other aspects outside of success, or you could settle with someone who doesn't have the success part but has all the other qualities. Yeah.
what are the other qualities you think?
Other qualities would be like just like some good intellectual qualities, like you I don't know, like uh,
And I mean, it's
they're
just
understanding, like
Mhm.
communicative, lovable, and just reciprocate like good energy, lovable energy. Sometimes when you meet like someone that is successful, like they might not have the time, they might not have the mental capability to be able to love you the way that you want to be loved. Like, so yeah, I don't know. There's so many different ways to look at it.
That is a really good way to articulate it, though.
Thanks.
Not having the time, they might not be able to give you the love for
Yep.
real. Because I think about, let's say you're a successful lawyer
Yes.
and you're looking for a guy, and you maybe you thought about finding some venture capitalist, for example, but that's a guy who travels a lot
Mm,
and he might be extremely almost psychopathic in his focus on work, which is how he got to be so successful.
right. Right. So really, it just depends on how you look at a relationship that you want and like what you're willing to sacrifice. Because it's like if you're a lover girl, you're not going to settle for someone who is too busy to give that love to you, or say you're to be with that person, you settle down with that person, you marry that person, they're not going to be able to give you that attention and love. If you have a child with this person, then they're not going to be able to give that love to your kid either. Like, so for me, it'd be like, would you rather be with someone who's successful, or someone that has time and is able to be emotionally available and present in your relationship? I would like that better than just someone being successful. But you would want a provider as well, so it's complicated. But I'm sure it's out
Is
there.
ex where is it? That's
Right.
exactly it.
Right.
I don't know that a lot of successful women would identify as lover girls, but they might
Right.
be.
I feel like there is some, but like I said, even being successful comes with sacrifices, because you want to be successful, you have to lock in on your success, and you have to lock in on what is going to drive you to be successful. And a lot of the times it's consistency in your work and in your job and getting yourself to a certain point. So you really have to meet somebody who comes in as that balance in your life. Like, they're able to be like, okay, yeah, I got my stuff going on, you have your stuff going on, but we're going to make sure we take this time out and just be understanding, you know. It's hard to come by though. But like I said, it's a sacrifice. So I know a lot of successful women probably are the same as like how sometimes a successful man could be, and are honed in on work and what they have going on. But I'm sure every one of them have love in the back of their minds. Everybody wants somebody to come home to.
Even if they're locked in, they're still thinking
Yes.
about love.
Because there is some people in the world
I
that are successful and in, like, marriages, relationships, and things like that. And they just make it work. They find like a balance. There's actually a couple on here, but yeah, there's a couple on here. The one guy's a doctor. I forget what the wife does. I forget. I think she might be a doctor too. I'm not sure. But they have 2 kids. They're married. I'm sure the doctor is probably busy, but it's really just all about finding balance and finding your person that understands. Like, sometimes in a relationship, it is not always going to be 50-50. You have any other topics? I love to talk.
love this topic because it's so modern.
Mm-hmm.
It's like so hard, but it's not. It's hard because if you're a successful woman, you do want a provider,
Right.
I think.
But
And then, but also, yeah,
you
if
could
you
be
want,
the
you,
provider.
you could be the provider.
Yeah, there's a woman on here actually. I forget what her name is. She's an Asian woman who the internet was in an uproar about, because she's pregnant and she was the sole provider for her husband. They had just got a new house and he wasn't working at the time. And yeah, the internet was literally in uproar about it, because she worked 2 different jobs and she did social media. But yeah, so they were like, how are you pregnant and doing 2 jobs and your husband's not working? Like, she's like, I'm okay to be the provider. And she came on the internet, and as much as she didn't have to defend herself, she was like, I'm not gonna let you guys come for my man, her husband at that. And she was saying how, like, in situations before, like, her husband was like the provider and was very helpful whenever she wasn't working and things like that. And how, in a relationship, like I said, it's not always going to be 50-50. And where she's at in life. Like she's able to provide and she's happy with being able to provide because her husband was laid off. And yeah, like she's okay with just being the provider for a little while her husband was waiting to get back working. So sometimes you can be the provider. It doesn't always have to be the man. It just depends on how secure you are with that man in your relationship.
Being secure with it is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
And the man has to be secure too. And I think a lot of successful women would say that is a hard person to find.
Really, honestly, I'm just about to say security is a big thing because it could be for the women. On the women's side, it could definitely be like when you have to be the provider, it can put you in like a like make you sit in your masculinity a little bit. And if the man isn't showing up the way that you would want your man to, instead if you're thinking in that mindset, it would give you a little bit of a like it
You
make you
don't feel
feel a little
safe,
not secure. I was just gonna say it would just kind of like
not secure.
yeah make you feel not really secure in that, or just like you have to be the top dog in the relationship. And that's where communication comes in. Because like I said, our relation it can't be 50-50 all the time, but like if you sit back, and a lot of men aren't communicative, they don't know how to express themselves, and they let their egos get ahead of them as well, because they're when they're put in that position, instead of communicating like, hey, like I understand, like you're doing this, but I'm trying my best, and I appreciate you, they kind of get closed off and then start feeling less than, and instead of expressing it to their partner, it starts to become a wedge between them, because then their pride is getting in front of them because they're not able to provide, and it could put a little bit of a turmoil in the relationship, on top of the woman having to provide. So yeah.
Did the man take pride in being more of a conventionally feminine man?
Can a man take pride in being so would you say like he's being feminine, or because of the fact that he's not able to provide, or is it making him feel less than because he's not able to provide as a man should?
I think you nailed it. I think if it's not about him being less than,
Yeah.
but if he can fill a role that she
Yeah, he could step into a little
needs,
bit more. Yeah, he could. If you're not able to step it up one way, there's ways to step up outside of that. If you're not able to at the time, like say the scenario I was telling you about with the woman whose um husband got laid off, so she became the sole provider. He stepped up and he was doing other things. He was making sure she's taken care of, taking her to work at times when she needed to, like just doing things like that. You could step into the role. If you're home and you're really not doing anything at all, then what role do you play to be able to say that you're putting security in your relationship, instead of backing all the way down because you can't provide? You could, as I guess you could say, it's stepping into the femininity of the relationship. If you're at home and you're cleaning and doing things like a woman traditionally would, cooking, making sure your wife is fed because you're not doing nothing else, I say that's better than having somebody to sit at home and not do nothing while they're trying to, get back on their feet.
so that's a good way to frame it, the cooking and cleaning part. So I wonder if you're a successful woman, you're a provider for yourself. You could provide for someone else if you had to.
If you
How do
had
you
to,
identify that man who's going to cook and clean versus some man who just your level.
A man that say that
Because
one more
if you're
time.
out here on an app or you're out here in person, you can't go up to someone at a bar or on an app and look at them and be like, that guy, he's going to drive me to work every day. He's going to cook, he's going to clean.
Right.
Right? What do? You ask what he does.
Yeah. So like say
Or
so it's really how your outlook on a relationship, because if you're saying like as far as meeting somebody who doesn't have any goals, aspirations, doesn't have a job, I don't want to we're not here. Like you got some things that you need to figure out with yourself that you need to grow with. But it's like if you're already with someone and y'all already had like y'all are married, that's a whole different story. But if you meet someone at that level and they're not on your level and you don't want to settle with that, you don't have to.
no, I think that's really important though,
Mm-hmm.
because if you're super successful and you're a woman, you don't want to even talk to, you know, in a romantic manner, someone who doesn't have a job that's as good as you. But maybe you do. Maybe he just needs to have a job. Maybe he just has to talk about it passionately.
Yeah, it really just depends. Like I said, it could be you could talk to somebody and before you even talk about where you work, because a lot of people don't even like bringing that up at first, or it could be a first conversation, but you could talk to somebody and connect with somebody and then learn about where they work and then already be liking this person and potentially be like, okay, right now as far as dating, that doesn't matter because who knows where that person could be in the next 6 months if you talk to them and they have more goals and aspirations and stuff like that. Like,
That's a hard one, is trying to guess someone's potential for sure. And
right,
then
right. You can't get your hopes up.
you can't. And
Yeah.
I think a lot of successful women are so got to where they are by cutting the BS
Right.
and filtering out people who don't help them.
That's a good thing to do though.
But
Like,
there are some, it is good.
yeah, because like I
I
said
wonder
before,
how,
sorry, I keep cutting you off. What'd you say?
I keep cutting you off too.
You wonder how what?
I wonder how many partnerships there are where the woman's a doctor, the man's a firefighter, right? The woman's a lawyer, the man's fitness instructor. Those are
Yeah.
modern dynamics. Those are
Mhm.
not easy if they do exist.
Mhm. Right. But it's really all about the dynamic that you build in your relationship, the communication that you build in your relationship, because not like having like a busy schedule and like I said, having somebody to come home to at the end of the day, that's where it really ties in. If they don't have like if someone just truly doesn't have time for you at all, then that could become a problem if you're someone that is dependent on that time. But if you have a certain dynamic or understanding with someone, and most married people do, then it really doesn't cause an issue. After being with somebody for so long, anyways, and being busy is not a bad thing. Being busy and having your own life outside of that person isn't bad because it's so easy whenever you have so much accessibility to someone to for it to kind of like
Just take them for
dull
granted
out.
or
Yeah, you take it for granted for the feelings to dull out just in general. Like when they say
a mil
absence makes the heart grow fonder, that is so real.
yeah.
Yeah, my grandparents are a good example. They've been together for like probably 18 years now, maybe even more. and how they are. My grandpa could go to Texas. I mean, could go to New York for like 2 weeks, and my grandma would be like, "Yeah, no, he's gonna come back. I'm okay. Like I like my little brother because they live together and they're together all the like not all the time, but like when they are together and have been together for as long as they are, it's like it's okay to have like a little break from somebody. So say you are a doctor and you're working like 60 hours a week, you want to come home to your partner and be like, you know, hey, but people like that get good vacations
They do.
and are able to make time. It's not all work. Having a good dynamic with somebody like that. Communication, having a good understanding and good dynamic in your relationship will make it work. If it's two busy people, even if it's a busy person or a less busy person.
If you're super busy, you're that doctor, do you think it's more valuable to have your partner be open all the time or for them to have a low paying job that doesn't give them much time to spend with you? Like, what do you want a stay-at-home husband really if he's going to be attentive to you and cook and clean? Or do you want him to earn some amount of money that doesn't even matter to you just so you can say he has a job? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, like I said, it really just depends on the person. Honestly, depends on the person. For me, in general, like I said, just I would like a person who is like we don't you don't have to make just as much money as me. You don't have to be just as successful as me. Like as long as you're in something that you're passionate about, you don't have to be an at home like person, but just as long as you're doing something that you're passionate about, you have dreams and aspirations, I'm okay with that. Follow your dreams, do what you got to do. But for me, like I like someone that's able to be emotionally available. And of course I wouldn't want like someone that doesn't make any money at all, because just as well as I'm able to do for someone, like I'm a giver, I also want that back sometimes. So
Yeah.
you don't have to make all the money in the world. As long as you're making some money, you're passionate, you're working, you know, that's all I need.
So this is like the doctor paying for dinner and the firefighter husband buying the dessert.
Hmm.
I think what you said about the partner being really passionate about what they do is really important
Right.
and really hard, I think, as a man to be super passionate when you're not providing, to be super secure when you're not really necessary.
Yeah. Yep. Is this topic something that
I
you
think
talk about often? What position would you like to play in that scenario?
I think the position I might be able to help with is for the woman who has everything except for the guy, and she might think that I have some ideas, or at the very least, some type of sounding board.
Okay.
Do you believe it?
Yeah, I can believe it.